back to Hour 2 of Liberty Storm. I'm your host, Shane Krauser, here with my sidekick, Chappie, and it's another great day in the USA. Excited to get to our guest here to talk about some things that need to happen in America to truly see restoration and progress towards more freedom and less government. Got two great people here in studio with us. Rob Robson is, I have to say it, a professional rascal.
Thank you very much.
And he's the Arizona Director of Life Leadership. And Rob, thanks so much for being in studio with us this afternoon.
We are so excited to be here, Shane. Thanks so much for having us.
You got it. And Easton Kelsey, he's an eye doctor here in town. He's also affiliated with Life Leadership. Easton, thanks so much as well for being here.
It's my pleasure and honor, Shane.
This is a great time. And Easton, we've known each other for, 4 years, 5 years?
Absolutely.
5 years, I think,
Yep.
going on 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you've just done some great things. Made a run for Congress way back when.
Yeah.
And now involved with Life Leadership. And this is really your passion. I know that it is.
Absolutely. Developing leaders, there's nothing more important.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Why Life Leadership really focuses on just that, developing leaders here in 2014. And I know we see eye to eye when it comes to our Constitution and liberty and what it means to be free, the ability to make our own decisions. And we're experiencing a lot of economic problems right now, and you have solutions that you believe that if they were implemented, we would start to correct some of those problems.
Sure. Yeah, really we see the main issue is a leadership crisis, that there is one of my favorite books, Thomas Jefferson Education by Oliver DeMille, talks about how the different educational systems that are out there. You have the conveyor belt education system, which is teaching people what to think, right? Hey, memorize these facts and figures of the facts that we tell you are facts. Here's why the Great Depression happened and why it was all big business's fault and it was the big government that came to save the day. And you got to memorize that to put it on a test
right.
in order to get an A,
yeah.
right? So that is what most of us are subjected to, is really a bunch of propaganda that's conveyor belt education. And then there's more of a professional education, which is when to think, right? If the conveyor belt is what to think, professional education, all right, when I'm practicing medicine, man, then my thinking lights turn on. But there's a step above that called the leadership education, which is really mostly throughout history, just elites were educated in this way through mentors and really understanding how to think, how to question things boldly, how to really take leadership, understanding communication skills and dealing with conflict and being able to have influence. And that's really how we win this fight is influence.
And I think that's a point well made. And I think I'm a victim, if you will, of both your conveyor belt and the professional. I mean, we all went to
Sure.
grade school, K through 12, and then went to college. I went to law school, and again, that professional type training. And we're going to teach you to think a certain way. We're going to teach you how to analyze things a certain way. And so long as you operate within those parameters, hey, you're going to be successful. And what you're saying is let's move beyond that. Let's start to talk about what it really means to lead, to start to be more independent, and start to take your own ideas and change the culture by implementing those various ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so funny. In the whole freedom movement, you hear the term a lot about the matrix, like the red pill, right? You took the red pill, the blue. I can't remember which pill it is.
There's the red pill.
There's the red pill, right?
Running for Congress.
Don't take the blue pill. But the point is, why? Is because we've been indoctrinated so deeply into a certain set of premises that when all of a sudden we look around and find truth, and truth is sweet to the ears, all of a sudden it's like we took the red pill. It's like, oh my gosh, everything's different. It's totally not the way that I was taught.
Yeah.
And it rocks people.
It really does.
We have systemized the red pill. That's what we've done.
I really appreciate you saying that, Rob, because I remember reading John Locke and Charles Montesquieu, and then you read some of the works of the great founders like the Thomas Jeffersons of the world.
Sure.
And you read that and you say, well, of course that's the way it is. And as you go out and you speak to groups and you outline those principles that were embraced by John Locke, you see the looks in the eyes of whether it's students in high school, college students.
Radical.
Yeah, well, they see it kind of radical.
Sure.
But at the same time, when you outline this idea that, hey, well, men and women are born free, and men and women with power cannot be trusted, that clicks with your average citizen.
Absolutely.
Right? So there, that pill is being swallowed.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, wait a second. Yeah, you guys that believe in rule of law and freedom, yeah, you're the crazy guys until you go in and talk to them about here's what we really believe in. And as you start to transcend those political party lines, people start to identify with those things. And I think that's what you're talking about,
Sure.
is leading with these particular ideas and changing things.
And it's so unifying. It's so nonpartisan, right? I mean, those two simple statements of we are all born free, which we know there's a book full of because of that, there's a bunch of conclusions and a bunch of laws that shouldn't be on the books because we've all been born free.
Absolutely.
And that no man, humankind cannot be trusted with power over someone else's rights.
Right.
Only as delegated servants for what we've been, rights that we already have. So those things are massive. And when you explain that to a liberal who's grown up understanding why, frustrated with people taking their civil liberties and frustrated with warmongers and people that are constantly, saying, well, the state in this, we don't trust the state in the financial area, but man, when it comes to the military, they're all saints.
Yes, right.
And we can, when you teach those two principles, liberals identify, when you teach those principles to someone who's grown up a conservative or a Republican or whatever it is, and you say, just because if you can't trust the government with our finances, why do you think we can trust them with civil liberties? Why do you think we can trust them with free reign on military and on being able to go to war anytime, any place without having to have congressional approval? Those are unifying principles that the liberty movement is trying to get across to people. And I think, Shane, you've done as good of a job as anybody on the planet at simplifying those things. And so really what Life Leadership is doing is we've put together over 100 of the top authors and speakers and coaches to create a curriculum that is designed to lead people to truth in 8 different areas. And it's a holistic education, but I would tell you that freedom is the foundation. And we think that freedom, though, you have to have political freedom. You also have to have financial freedom, because if you're in financial bondage, doesn't matter how politically free you are, you're very limited. And spiritual freedom. And so, a lot of times we send our kids to college with a good head on their shoulders, and they come back atheists and communists. The great duo.
That's right.
And sometimes we have to uneducate from the system in order. And so everything we have is definitely foundational on faith. And so really, it's for who it's for. It could be very polarizing, and that's fine. And it's in 2 years, Shane, we've grown and done over $110 million in sales in just 2 years.
Wow.
It's been unbelievable.
Well, I want to get to some of those principles that you outlined, the 8 principles, but I find it interesting. As you noted, individuals, we send them off to college, and they come back atheist and communist and all of the above. But, my experience being out at, whether it's in high schools or on college campuses all over the country, is being able to transcend those party lines is key. And one of the questions I'll always ask, for example, to college students is, do you want to be left alone? Do you want other people to tell you what to do? And I've never had one college student, I've never had one high school student, I've never spoken in front of a group where a person says, I want to be told what to do. Or I want people to encroach on my daily life and tell me how to live my life, because someone certainly knows how to live my life better than I do. I've never had that happen once. And yet when we get involved in discussions about the way society should be run, it's all about telling other people what to do. There's this sort of inconsistency in the way that we want to be treated ourselves and the way that we're willing to use government force to treat other people.
Absolutely.
And Easton, you got involved in Life Leadership about 2 years ago, right?
I was there from the onset. I saw that this really provided a better way to, if we really want to change America, we got to start with ourselves. I got involved, as you and I got involved with the Tea Party, and there's definitely some merits in the constitutionality, adherence, and limited government, and fiscal responsibility. Those are all good concepts. But it didn't go to the heart of the situation. Was, if we really want to change, we need to start with ourselves. Well, as I was pointing my fingers at Washington, I had 3 pointing back at me.
Yeah. Right.
If I'm in debt, how can I expect Washington to be out of debt?
Right.
If I don't have my relationships right I'm not leading my family, how can I expect our leaders to lead our nation? So the lessons of leadership start at home, or start within the individual, and then we move from dependence to independence, and then we become interdependent as a community, and take away the need for the state.
Yeah,
need for them to.
Easton, I think that's a point well made. The change that we're looking for, the restoration that we're looking for, has to begin with ourselves, and it has to begin around the dinner table, right?
So true.
I mean, we often hear, and Shoppy and I have had this debate over and over and over about, prayer in schools. Well, okay, tell us why you want prayer in schools. Well, you can't take God out of the school. What you're really saying is you want someone to take the place of what it is that you're not doing in your own personal
exactly
life.
right, yeah.
Therefore, make it happen within the 4 walls of that classroom.
We have fallen asleep as citizens. In fact, most of us don't know what it means to be a citizen anymore, because we're so focused in on a paycheck, chasing a paycheck. And
experts doing the job for us.
That's right.
Luckily, we have these
experts.
credentialist experts out there that, well, they've got a degree, they've got a license. For heaven's sakes, the government has given them a license.
That's our
to
mistake
do this.
right there. That's exactly right. I mean, we can't take what an individual says at face value simply because they said it and because they have credentials. No, that's not what we need to do. I have a daughter who experienced the same thing in school. Her teacher said one thing. She came home and told me, "Hey, Dad, did you know that this, the blah, 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 blah?" I said, "No, that's actually incorrect. Let me tell you why." Well, then we went back and forth, had a little debate. Well, she's like, "Well, this teacher has the credentials. She went to school, she studied, she got certified by the state to be a teacher, so she must be right." That's the problem. We take everything at its face value. We don't question anything, and we go, "Man, let me go ahead and follow you."
Is that your sheep noise?
Yes, exactly. But the thing is, let's take individual responsibility. Let's take responsibility for ourselves to figure out what is right and what is wrong, rather than just follow blindly somebody because they said so.
Absolutely.
So in studio with us is Rob Robson and Easton Kelsey. They're both with Life Leadership. Check out lifeleadership.com. That's lifeleadership.com. I want to go to I introduced you, Rob, as a rascal. And it comes from Chris Brady's book, Rascals, which is a phenomenal book. My oldest son, when I punished him at one point in time, told him, before you're going to be let out of the cell, you must read the book Rascals. Tell us a little bit about that idea, because I know, Easton, on your Twitter, I think your Twitter handle says something about rascals.
Yeah.
And so there's this kind of fascination with the idea of operating outside of the box. Tell us a little bit about the idea.
Well, I love Chappie's sheep impersonation, because that's really what taking the red pill is. All of a sudden you realize, have I just been a sheep this whole time?
Yeah.
And really what a rascal is someone who's willing to run against the crowd. And realistically, if you listen to almost every successful person, every multimillionaire, every billionaire, they said, well, one of the great tests to decide if something was a good idea is I'd ask the crowd if they thought it was a good idea. And if most of them said it wasn't, I did it. Right? And that's the point.
Oh, my gosh. I love that. Rob, John Adams, he was the guy who said, if I fall within the position of the majority, I should take caution, because I very, very well could be wrong.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about human nature. We're talking about what individuals ultimately do. They follow the crowd. They are sheep. And so that just makes sense that, hey, if you find yourself in the majority, it doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong, but be cautious about what it is that you're doing. And that's what you're saying a rascal is.
Absolutely.
He's thinking for himself.
Thinking for themselves. And sometimes that's with the masses, but if you look at the statistics of where the masses are, then you probably don't want to follow them.
Right.
I mean, you look at the vast majority, people that are 65 have a harder time pulling together $500 than a 25-year-old. They've been on this earth 65 years, and they're flat broke. Most people are less than 3 months away from total bankruptcy if they lose a paycheck.
Yes.
Right? So whatever they're doing, you shouldn't. Right? Whatever books they're reading, don't read them. Right? I mean, that's just the simple wisdom.
Here's the problem that I find with a lot of people is they want the security of being accepted into something, and so they don't want to stand out alone. They want to be a part of something. And hey, this movement is really gaining momentum. They must be doing something right. They must be right. I want to be a part of that. When in reality, they should be doing just the opposite, running away from that movement, because where that movement's headed is a destination they don't want to be.
Yes.
Well, we're creating a community of rascals, so
that's good.
It's all that. But so, like I said, because we moved from dependence to independence to interdependence. But the only dependence we should have is on God, and so that's the subtitle of the book. It's making a difference by becoming original character. Mm-hmm. That's the subtitle of the book. And the only way you can do that, the only leader we should have ultimately is our relationship with our God.
Sure. Yeah, so life leadership designed to we all have that desire to be among other people.
Right.
We all want to be accepted. And so really life leadership created a community-based program that we have tens of thousands of people meeting on a weekly basis all over North America. We just opened up May 1st in Australia and New Zealand. We're all over the United States and Canada right now. And you can go on Life Leadership's website and check out the events. And there is an event near you somewhere, almost anywhere on the planet today, where whether it's 60 to 100 people at a small event or thousands of people at some of our big events are turning out on a weekly and a monthly basis to learn about leadership and freedom and really edifying and building people up. And instead instead of creating a yes community where, that crowd's running that way, let's create another crowd and run this other way. It's really teaching the methodology and the wisdom on how to think for yourself, how to question things,
So is there something like that coming up in Arizona? Is that we have a meeting coming up?
Absolutely. Every Tuesday night here in the Valley, in Mesa, we have Life Leadership Open meetings at Fiesta Fountains right now is where we're at over on Longmore and just south of Southern in Mesa. And this month we'll have a big event on the 7th, Saturday the 7th, which is our Life Live. We have those on a monthly basis where we bring in some of the top speakers around the country, and that'll be at Central High School, and there'll be hundreds of us there, and it's been amazing. And let me go through just kind of I think why we believe this is the best answer for freedom. And it comes from a book, I mentioned his name before. Oliver DeMille is a great contributor to the freedom movement and a big contributor to Life Leadership. And he wrote a book called Freedom Shift. And in the Freedom Shift, he talks about 3 revolutions that we need if we're going to win the war. And, he cases that, makes the case that for the original revolution, only 2 or 3% was even involved. And so oftentimes we think about how big the federal government is and how small I am. How could I ever make a difference? And how are we ever going to get the majority? Well, we don't need the majority. We get a small,
that's right.
2 or 3%, we can make a big difference. So what are the things that we need to have a revolution in? The first one, he said, was self-directed education. Self-directed education. And this is really what Life Leadership's all about. It's getting people from the conveyor belt and from the professional to a leadership education and creating habits of reading, listening, and associating. We've got to have a culture of voracious readers in order to make a difference. I love when you hear about I'm just reading Benjamin Franklin's autobiography and talking about how, even the common plowboy could read much of the debates that were going on at that time from the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist papers because our the education level was so much higher on things that really matter. And we have such a small percentage of people that are readers today. So this type of content and the difference it started making in my life, I dropped out of college my freshman year, but I started learning from Orrin Woodward and Chris Brady, the founders of Life Leadership, and I learned how to start a business when I was 21, and I did it on the side of selling cars 60 hours a week at a normal job, and which I wasn't very good at. And within about 6 months, whenever I tell someone I used to be a used car salesman, I say, but I've repented since then. And so. But on the side of that, 15, 20 hours a week, I built a business, and within 6 months, I didn't have to have a job anymore. And I wasn't rich, but I was making an extra $3,000 a month, and that created the freedom of, wow, I could just build my own business. And it didn't take a long time after that, because I had great mentors and a new self-directed education, to create total financial freedom and create a multiple 6-figure income and just everything shifted in my life because I started to get on a self-directed path. And today I get to speak at a lot of high schools and colleges on entrepreneurship and, telling my story of someone who didn't have the traditional educational path, but because I found it focused on self-directed and I filled up a library of books that have changed my life, I was able to achieve some great things.
When we come back on the other side, I want to talk about the 2 other revolutions that Oliver DeMille talks about in the book. And, talk about how we take these ideas and truly change the culture, because I think we all sitting around here in the studio recognize that this is a cultural battle that we're dealing with. We want to see a cultural shift.
Absolutely.
And we've got Americans, mainstream America, are fighting these election cycle battles thinking that they're going to correct the problem. Nothing could be further from the truth. Check it out, lifeleadership.com. That's lifeleadership.com. More to come with Rob Robson and Easton Kelsey of Life Leadership when we come back. You're listening to Liberty Storm. I'm Shane Krauser, and we are Independent Talk 1100 KFNX, where freedom lives. Stay tuned. In studio with us, Rob Robson and Easton Kelsey of Life Leadership. And great organization that you can find out more about at lifeleadership.com. That's lifeleadership.com. And before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about Oliver DeMille and the book that he had written called Freedom Shift or Leadership.
Well, Leadership is a book by Oliver DeMille and Orrin Woodward that's currently...
We're talking Freedom Shift. Freedom Shift. You get them confused.
Yep.
Well, they both exist, so there you go.
And they're both amazing.
Yes. And you were talking a little bit about self-directed education. Easton, talk a little bit about the media when it comes to self-directed education.
Well, they say that all leaders are readers, but not all readers are leaders. And so, what we're doing here is we are fighting the media battle. I mean, how many kids of our kids have a smartphone, which is, I actually call it a dumb phone.
Yeah.
Because, quite frankly, they're disconnected from the thinking, the voracious thinking, that open-minded thinking that we want to get our kids involved in. And, we don't even have TV in our house, so that doesn't mean the kids never watch movies, but it doesn't mean that we don't listen to the radio. Hopefully you're listening to the radio right now. But back when I was really involved in politics, before I found out that poly meant many and ticks meant blood-sucking creatures, I would listen to talk radio sometimes, and sometimes I would just get upset and get angry and get into blame mode and back to the partisanship. And what we're doing here is we're providing an entire environment that we can unplug out of the inputs and change those so we can create different outputs. And for my kids, for instance, I've got 5 teenagers, and so I want them to learn how to get paid to think. So I'll pay them 10 cents a page to read. Or if they listen to an audio presentation, they write a report, I'll give them, $5, something like that. So I want to incentivize them to get paid not just for working with their hands, but working with their mind.
Yep. We have a whole youth education series called the Edge series that's awesome. It's really designed for teenagers, but my boys that are 10 and 9, Jackson and Rustin, that's the best way they have to make money. They make $3 every time they listen to one of the Edge CDs. They write me a paragraph synopsis, then a paragraph.
Wow, that's a great idea. I really like that.
It's awesome.
I'm excited right now.
You should hear,
seriously, I want to go home right now and implement that in my family.
You should hear Jackson, his son, on YouTube talking about the Federal Reserve. You had 10.
Is that right?
My 10-year-old could school most most econ professors. So
now I'm excited. I'm sitting up straight in my seat. I'm not slouching anymore.
Please, I'm done. I'm going home. I got to talk to my kids.
It's a blast because all of a sudden there's different talk around the dinner table. All of a sudden there's a whole, and it's not just what mom and dad are trying to push down their throats. It's creating new heroes. Instead of having the MTV and professional athlete heroes, we have on the Edge series, we have interviews with professional athletes. We've got interviews with people who became multimillionaires when they were young, or youth that have done amazing things. So it's their peers, and now we're creating new heroes. And it's amazing how fast they pick up on these things and how emotionally they own it. It's like, man, this is my information. So the Edge series is $10 a month, and people get on subscription for that. And man, I've seen just it fly through neighborhoods because as soon as little Johnny's on it, little Johnny's parents go, man, I don't want you to hang around with all your other friends unless they get undummified. And so we got to get their parents on the Edge series.
Because stupid is sticky. Right?
Stupid is sticky. They write it all over you. So the first area is all self-directed education, and really it's teaching people the new habits of read, listen, associate. I mean, I was 21. I was a punk kid that had a very rebellious childhood, teenagehood, and was coming back. And what changed my life was a mentor that got me to commit to a 6-month media fast, where I was off of all media for 6 months, and I read the books that he gave me to read, and I listened to 5 to 10 hours of audios every day. I had one of those old yellow Sony Walkman cassette players on my hip with one earphone in, and while I did everything else in my life. And he called it net learning, no extra time, right? So because I was doing it anyway, I just had an earphone in, and I did that for 6 months. And and in 1 month I felt like a different person, and in 5 months after that I was speaking all over the country, teaching people how they can change their life, how there's a formula, and it's self-directed education. So go ahead.
So when you do these big events, when you're bringing in thousands of people together, what are you telling them? I mean, talk about entrepreneurship, talk about leadership, talk about the skills that you're offering to them that really allow them to go out into the culture and have an impact.
Yeah, and so, the 8 areas that life focuses on is faith, and it's not so much a specific religion, except that all of our content is definitely from a biblical worldview. So that's the worldview that we are in, and it's for who it's for. Family is marriage and parenting education, and also youth education, financial education. This has been, I think, one of the greatest pathways to liberty is through finances, through people's pocketbook, and we have one of, I think, the most incredible product we have, and it's our highest sales product, is called the Financial Fitness Program. And the Financial Fitness Program teaches the offense, defense, and playing field of money. So the offense is learning how to create wealth, and mostly around entrepreneurship, mostly around that. Guys, that's one of the big pieces that Oliver DeMille, that was the second of his 3 revolutions, is entrepreneurship, because you have to have the autonomy in order to have a revolution. These leaders need to not be dependent. My dad always said you can't be independent if you're financially dependent on a boss, right?
Yeah,
so if you
true.
can teach people to be an entrepreneur, it's a big thing. So that's the offense of making money. Defense is how to have a budget, how to get out of debt, understanding stewardship. But then the playing field of money, no one teaches this. In one course, we go through macroeconomics, Austrian, the basics of the Austrian school or free market economics, and teaching people that the Federal Reserve is neither federal and has no reserves, and really what the boom-bust cycle is all about. And because of what I learned there, we were able to get into real estate investing and do quite well not because I knew real estate, but because I knew economics and I knew the boom-bust cycle. Everything shifted. So that's the financial area, and so it starts with faith. Then we go through family, finances, fitness, all through following, which is leadership development. I was just working with about 8 different charter schools here in the Valley that Easton has worked with, and then I was just working with some townships and a whole sheriff's department up north on leadership culture. And we have some of the greatest, lowest cost products for companies, for churches, for schools. Tens of thousands of companies all across the country using this, and it's been life-changing.
Wow, we got lots more to come. I want to continue on. I'm hot to trot on this, paying my kids to learn.
Oh,
man.
heck yeah.
Hey, we're coming back with Easton Kelsey and Rob Robson of LifeLeadership.com. That's LifeLeadership.com. You're listening to Liberty Storm. I'm Shane Krauser, and we are Independent Talk 1100 KFNX. See you in 2 minutes. Chappie, I have to tell you, it is just a great thing to see you not slouching in your chair. You're actually sitting up. You're alert. You're right up at the studio table here.
So you're
right up there at
that
the microphone.
I'm a slouch, but that's
well,
not
most of the time.
Only during the breaks.
But you're excited about LifeLeadership.com.
Of course.
Who
wouldn't be? Anybody listening right now is probably driving in their car going, woo! You know what I'm looking up when I get home?
I know. I'm going to start paying my kids to learn.
That's right.
No, I love the idea. I absolutely love the idea. It's phenomenal. Rob Robson and Easton Kelsey are in the studio with me. They are both affiliated with LifeLeadership.com. And Rob is the Arizona State Director. Just great information. I will tell you, I've read the book Rascals. I've read the book Leadership. These are fantastic books that really allow us to think outside the box, that motivate us to think outside the box, to have an impact on the culture. Rob, before we went to break, we were talking about entrepreneurship, leadership, and you're talking about the 8 F's, if you will, that of faith, family, financial, fitness. Talk about with us a little bit more about that and why those are so critical.
So there's faith, family, finances, fitness, following, which is leadership, freedom, friends, and fun. So freedom is really teaching the nonpartisan approach of what the ideals of liberty are. Really, if you go to Shane Krauser's website and you watch some of Shane's clips, and you'll see the main, it's right along those lines of teaching that philosophy from from a bunch of different perspectives, from historical outlines, and it's amazing how many people really gravitate to it because rather than doing the media talking points and rather than trying to create opposing sides where 50% hate the other 50% of our country, and when really focusing on it's the less than 1% that own the government that are utilizing it to control and create corporatism and special deals, that's what we should all be against, and that we should all be for the teaching the ideals that we're all born free and no one can be trusted with power. So that it's been a revolution. It really has.
The thing that I really appreciate about what it is that you're doing at Life Leadership is that there's a positive attitude. It's encouraging.
Solution focused.
It's providing hope. And
Right.
so often when we see movements, especially many of the grassroots organizations, there's this attitude of despair. All is lost. The sky
Absolutely.
is falling. You're not going to see real change that's facilitated by that sort of attitude. And so you bring this very positive attitude to the table and say, we can make this happen. You can be a part of this.
Hey, I've been there. I've spent hundreds of hours online looking up every conspiracy theory. I mean, this is back in 2007, 2008, 2009, just going, man, something's wrong and I got to get to the bottom of it. And, you know, a lot of that are conspiracy facts. But the point is that the more I got into the negative, the more I felt completely defenseless. I could do nothing about it. I'm powerless. And I love that Orrin Woodward and Chris Brady, the founders of Life Leadership, Inc. magazine just rated them 2 of the top 40 most influential leaders in America. And they created a whole focus on solutions that we can through the 3 revolutions that Oliver DeMille outlined, of a self-directed revolution, self-directed education revolution, a leadership revolution, an entrepreneurship revolution, that we can actually fix things and that you can be part of it. So,
We'll talk about that, because I talk about some of the opportunities that are there with Life Leadership.
Well, first of all, we will, in the leadership, the liberty education, what we're doing is we're just teaching people that if we align man's law with natural law, then everything goes a lot smoother.
Sure.
That's pretty much what it comes down to it. But yeah, and you think about the backbone of our economy is entrepreneurs, small businessmen, right? So was it even in Arizona, 60 to 70% right, of our economy?
And women.
And,
small businessmen
small
and women.
business
Yep.
people. And so what we're doing is we're teaching people how to own their life, not just in a business, but how to just have that ownership mindedness and to carry that forward. We're teaching them, to be a businessman, you have to know accounting skills, you have to know about economics, you have to know about finances in general. I mean, you have to know about conflict resolution. There's so many things, the skills and resources that we develop through this that we can take and put forward to benefit society as a whole.
So one of the things I love that as soon as we talked about getting paid to learn, talking about paying our kids to learn, when I started paying my kids to learn, the lights turned on. They all of a sudden were totally motivated to get up and I wouldn't have to tell them. They would get an audio player or they would read a book. And it's been so neat to see that. And really what Life Leadership has done is they've taken a model and instead of all of the profits going to Orrin Woodward or Chris Brady or going public, this is not only privately held, but it operates weird in that the owners don't make any money from the profits of the company. It's a field-based profit-sharing opportunity that has taken the traditional direct sales model and turned it on its head by saying all of the profits go to the field. Let's take this opportunity. Those first 2 years we did $110 million in sales. 72% of the revenue was paid out to people like Easton and I for sharing this message. And
so just so I'm clear, Rob, when you're talking about Life Leadership, you're talking about opportunities within the organization to make money. That is to be paid by Life Leadership.
Absolutely, yeah. And so there's a couple of ways. Someone could be a customer to Life Leadership, and great thing about being a customer is if you referred 3 other customers, you get your product for free. So if you're on a subscription to the Edge series and you tell 3 other parents to get the Edge series for their kids, well, now your Edge series is free. So that's a cool deal. But you can also register to become a member. And for $100, the business part's free, but you get a $100 sample pack of products, and you actually are a business owner. You're in business. And what we've done is, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a constitutional expert who has quit his job and is full-time teaching the Constitution. But he was in a position to do so and still has to live pretty meagerly in order to subsist because he's living on savings. And I said, think about this. How are we ever going to win against big government when they have their own printing press? They're able to pay the credentialists, the experts to be on their side, and then pay millions of people through welfare to hold signs and say, we like big government, statism rocks, right? And that's,
that's right.
And so how can we win against that? Yeah. How are you going to ever recruit enough people to quit their job to study the Constitution and free market principles to go share it with people? But what if we could create a way that tens of thousands, now hundreds of thousands of people can make part of their living or all of their living reading, listening, associating, teaching people these principles? And it has exploded. I mean, in just over 2.5 years, we've had momentous growth. We have, national conventions, tens of thousands of people show up in one spot on a monthly basis, tens of thousands of people showing up in individual seminars all across the country. And you know what? Some of the people come in and have I'd say more than 80% of the people that have joined Life Leadership were politically agnostic. They don't know, they don't care, they don't know to care, right? And all of a sudden, because we pay them to care, because we found them on another one of those 8Fs, maybe their marriage was a wreck and somebody loaned them a CD to help them with their marriage, or maybe finances were killing them and somebody said, man, you should try the financial fitness program. And by going through that, they got led to some truth, which led to, man, I'd like to find out some more truth. This truth made a big difference in my life. I'd like some more. And so then they come back, they get on a subscription, they go, man, we could get paid to share this message with people. And it has been a blast. This is what we get to do for a living full time. All I do is I read.
That's all you're doing.
That's
all
Life
Leadership.
That's right. I read, I listen. We started homeschooling our kids this year. But my wife and I get to do seminars all across the country. Easton started to speak here a lot locally, and it's been amazing to see thousands of people shift.
Now, Easton, you're an eye doctor. You went to the professional learning, right?
I got the
learned
second
when
level.
to think, right?
Yeah.
You got the second level.
Yep.
We're on the same page here. But you're looking at kind of phasing out that practice with time?
Absolutely. Just applying the principles that I've learned in this organization. Like I said, I realized I got to get my house in order. I was over $100,000 in debt. I was working 6 days a week. So I was more than broke, right? And I was time broke. And how in the world can I make a difference? And by just following the principles that they teach, the offense, the defense, and just getting my house in order, being able to wipe out all that debt. That's a good feeling, by the way. Mm-hmm. And to get some real money, like silver and gold. And, some of that paper stuff, I've been eating it. But, just to have savings in the bank and just some security, real security, and then cut back to 3 days a week as an eye doctor and just say, hey, this is the direction I'm moving. I can make a bigger difference, a bigger impact, leading hundreds of people to truth than I could, unfortunately, as a public servant. Not to denounce that, and there is a place for everybody, but that's just not my calling at the time.
So if there were any book out there that you'd recommend that our listeners read first and foremost, what would that book be?
Man, there's so many good ones. But right now, currently on the New York Times bestsellers list is Leadership by Orrin Woodward and Oliver DeMille. And it talks about how we can make a difference, saving our country and other countries by becoming a leader. And it also gives some real world specific ideas of some constitutional changes and big things like that. So, I mean, that's a great one to check out. Another one, Resolved, 13 Resolutions for Life by Orrin Woodward, is unbelievable. And then Launching a Leadership Revolution was a New York Times #1 bestseller for almost a year a few years ago. Unbelievable book.
So if individuals go to lifeleadership.com, that's lifeleadership.com, they can find out more information about the organization.
Absolutely.
If they want to find out where you're going to be speaking here locally in Arizona, can they find that information at lifeleadership.com?
They can. They can also go to my personal website called fireduplife.com. Fireduplife.com. They can get a hold of me there. They can come to our local events here and just check it out for free. Just check it out. It's been because we give enough. I loan material for a living, and then people become chemically addicted to the endorphins that it releases, and then they if they get off, they end up living in a van down by the river on government cheese. And so
hey, you know that one. Hey, Chris Farley.
Down by the river.
How's that go, Chet? I mean, you just love Chris Farley.
I do. He's my favorite.
How's that go?
My name's Matt Foley, and I'm a motivational speaker, and I live in a van down by the river.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow, there you go. So, lifeleadership.com. Tell our listeners before we go about some of the events that are coming up here in Arizona again.
Yeah, every Tuesday night we have events in Mesa. We also have them in Tucson, and we also have them on Thursdays up in Show Low at the Hampton Inn. In Mesa, we are at the Fiesta Fountains Conference Center, which is on Longmore, just between Baseline and Southern. And unbelievable events. Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. You can come check it out. Jump online. Get a hold of me through fireduplife.com, and we'd love to get you some information.
Excellent. Rob Robson, Easton Kelsey, thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. Very good. You know the drill. This is your nation to save. Be courageous, involved, and informed. Empower, educate, lead. Making this happen one person, one conversation at a time. Until tomorrow, be safe and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.